Hello there. Crime is rampant and the police are telling you to do this? What the f*** is going on? This just shows you that policing across the Western world is definitely on the slide. Shoplifting in the US is rampant and on the rise here in the UK too, as it is now virtually ignored. And we have the incessant two-tier policing in the UK, as illustrated by the way the Met ignore the pro-Palestine marchers but jump on any counter-protester, even though they're not breaking the law. And now in Canada, we hear that car theft is running so high that it has become a national crisis. And the thieves use technical signal boosters to make keyless vehicles think you are approaching the car with your key fob on you, and so let the thieves into the car. So as a result, many people are now putting their key fob in a Faraday pouch, which prevents electric signals getting in and out. But things are getting so serious now that the Canadian police have been giving guidance to those who own keyless cars and keep their keys in a Faraday pouch in their house on what to do just in case thieves are targeting their four-wheel pride.
There's also updated advice for all vehicle owners, a message echoed by Toronto police speaking at an Etobicoke safety meeting last month. Constable Marco Ricciardi had a new message for vehicle owners who keep their fobs in Faraday pouches.
To prevent the possibility of being attacked in your home, leave your fobs at your front door, because they're breaking into your home to steal your car. They don't want anything else. A lot of them that they're arresting have guns on them, and they're not toy guns, they're real guns. They're loaded.
How long before we in the UK are being likewise advised? Yes, put the key pouch near the front door so that it's easier for the burglars to take the fob and run off with your car, and doing so without harming the occupants of the house. What he could have said was don't put the keys in a key pouch, leave them out where a signal booster can latch onto its signal so they don't even have to break and enter in the first place. Or better still, just leave the keys in the porch, or even on the front seat of the vehicle. And I do have to wonder what this sort of advice does to these car owners' insurance policy premiums. Now it transpires that once stolen, many of these cars are spirited abroad for resale. All as part of an organised crime racket. An organised crime racket that the Canadian police appear to have no handle on. CBC News did a story back in September last year saying they tracked one owner's car to a lot in Africa. And in the same lot, journalists found dozens of other vehicles, some with Canadian licence plates, often with their provincial registration and insurance documents still in the glove box. All had been reported stolen from Ontario and Quebec. And it was also reported last year that a car is stolen every few minutes in Canada. Here's what the Insurance Bureau of Canada has to say on this. Auto theft is a crisis that's affecting Canadians across the country and is being felt most acutely in Ontario. In 2022, more than 105,000 vehicles were stolen across Canada. That's one vehicle stolen every 5 minutes. Without a whole-of-society response, the crisis is expected to get even worse. And the National Post reported in January that the spree is just the latest incident in a problem that has been surging over the last few years. Industry reports have noted that both Ontario and Quebec have seen a nearly 50% increase in vehicle thefts since 2022. According to a 2023 report from the Canadian Finance and Leasing Association, a vehicle is now stolen every 6 minutes. Now what gets me is that CBC Canada, also from January this year, reported that one Toronto man who had 2 cars stolen in the same year used multiple Apple AirTags to track the second vehicle after it was stolen from his driveway. and it was taken to a nearby rail yard, then to the port of Montreal, then via Antwerp and ultimately to a used car lot in the United Arab Emirates. And get this, after pleading with police to help retrieve the truck, he hired a private investigator and even contacted Interpol, all to no avail. And even though the police knew exactly where the car was while it was in Canada, they did nothing, and then told the victim that this was an unusual case. Not sure I believe that one. Maybe they think that if the car is insured, then why bother, especially if the thieves are potentially so violent. And car theft is on the rise in the UK too. We have a car stolen every 8 or 9 minutes. And all these car thefts occur despite all the technology that car makers deploy to try and prevent theft. And while the police can get you for speeding, it seems that cars, once stolen, just vanish, either into the spare parts business or they are whizzed off abroad. Now think about the supply chain issues in both of those routes. The people involved, the money laundering, the forged paperwork, the bribery. Anyone who's legitimately bought or sold a vehicle these days will understand that there's quite a rigmarole to go through. And getting cars into major ports, inside containers, without checks. Sounds like serious bribery is going on there. Anyway, the police are far too busy to deal with this. We know that because they haven't the time to attend, let alone investigate, shoplifting and burglary these days. Yes, attending pro-Palestine marches as spectators and hunting down hurty words on Twitter are far more pressing matters, as is the correct procedure for twerking. And, of course, ferreting out the far right. But it's not all the fault of the police constables on the ground. It has more to do with their bosses, and even more to do with our politicians who won't treat crime with the seriousness it requires. Because even if a constable did arrest someone, it would take ages to get to court and there'd be no prison space to send the convicted to anyway. We're actually freeing inmates a month early right now so as to free up cell space. All because our courts and prisons are failing. Something that can only make our nation that bit less safe. But it's all okay, folks. Our political masters have come up with a wizard wheeze to spend millions on defending themselves against extremists and the far right. All illustrated by the Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove announcing today his new definition of extremism in the Commons, and his Shadow Minister Angela Rayner agreeing with him that it was reprehensible that our elected politicians were under threat. And the first threat he talked about was that from the far right. Tells you all you need to know about the priorities of the blob, doesn't it? I'll do a vid on that one tomorrow, I think, because it has horrific ramifications if, as I suspect, mission creep does its normal thing. Anyway, Parliament as a whole has let the population down. Defence, failed. Law and order, failed. Energy security, failed. Food security, failed. A proper Brexit, failed. All they have succeeded in doing is losing all our money by putting it into net zero and mass inward migration. I mean, what else have they achieved? And their next victory will be to hand us over to the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty, something I fear this now discredited COVID inquiry will demand we do.